E aí, tá gostando da playlist Corra Numa Boa? Ela é um oferecimento do Itaú Uniclass para ser a trilha sonora dos seus treinos e te ajudar a seguir em frente. Pois na vida e na corrida, cada passo é uma conquista e merece ser celebrado. Itaú Uniclass, para você chegar lá.
Precisa ferir a pressão, medir a glicemia ou tomar uma vacina? Na Drogasil tem exames, testes e calendário vacinal completo. E o que é melhor, tem sempre uma Drogasil aí perto de você. É fácil, prático e rápido. Dá para ir entre uma música e outra. Procure nossos farmacêuticos. Quanto mais você conhece o que a gente faz na Drogasil, mais você se cuida.
Desculpa a interrupção do meio tempo, mas só passei rapidinho pra te lembrar que Conmebol Copa América 2024 e a UEFA Euro 2024 já estão disponíveis no EA Sports FC Mobile. Não perca tempo, vem participar desses eventos e vivenciar o melhor do futebol. Viva a emoção do verdadeiro futebol e escreva um novo capítulo nas histórias dos seus jogadores favoritos e todos os times participantes. EA Sports FC Mobile, o jogo de todo mundo no seu bolso. Participe e jogue agora. Inclui compras opcionais dentro do jogo, inclui itens aleatórios.
Welcome back, Ram fans. This is Rams Up, your favorite LA Rams podcast. We are a member of the Fans First Sports Network. You can also follow us on YouTube. Our channel is at LA Rams Up. We have video content there as well as our podcasts. I will be joined often by my football gurus, Ian and Paul. Hey, we're not Rams insiders. We're just fans who love talking about the NFL and our LA Rams. Let's get to it. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Got another Rams Up Roundtable for you. The gang's all here. What's going on, Paul?
Fantastic. Summer is here. Barbecues are in full swing and looking forward to the season kickoff.
Yeah, you know, I always ask you about the weather back there in Long Island, and I said, you know what, I'm going to look it up, and I think you have some possible thunderstorms in your area, just so you know.
Yep, we're still ticking 90 plus.
Man, I would do anything for a nice thunderstorm here. I love them. They're so rare around here. What's up, Ian?
Doing good, gents. Doing good. And, man, I mean, we're not that far away. Every week we get together so often, I'm just like, man, time flies. Time flies, but in a positive way. I mean, God, I'm excited. Can't wait for football.
Yeah, we had talked about doing this every other week, but as we get closer, I think we're gonna be itching to go every Tuesday night. I have a feeling if you guys are up to it.
The flow is back.
The first thing I wanted to talk about, and I don't know what to make of this. It was shared on Twitter. My special assistant sent me the note about Alaric Jackson's reported weight gain. And I looked it up. On Pro Football Reference, I think Pro Football Reference site, I think he's still listed at 275. I don't know what he was listed by the Rams last year, but indeed he is listed at 345 now. What do you make of that, Ian? Have the Rams been playing games with us, or are they playing games with us now, or did he really put on 60 pounds?
Well, look, Alaric is a big human being. Duh. He plays left tackle in the NFL. You got to be a large human, you know, to handle that spot at the minimum. And look at everybody. NFL teams lie all the dang time about height and weight. We see it constantly, how players are retired. Like, yeah, I probably added on an extra 10. Or I took off an extra 10 so people would think I was slimmer. Aaron Donald has mentioned that, right? Or Aaron Donald said, hey, I added some weight in a couple years just to make people think I was bigger, so then I was slimmer and faster, and then people weren't ready for it. Players have lied about their height, right? It's all the mental factor going into a game where you're thinking, all right, this guy is 6'8", 300 plus pounds. Man, I better bring it. Or he's going to be more of a power guy. And then you get there, he's more of a speed guy. It's all the mind games that teams play with each other. So in terms of Alaric and his height and weight, who knows, dude? And I think it's going to be an eye test of any of us who can make it out to training camp, or any of you listening in make it out to training camp. You can tell when someone's a 300-pounder based on their height ratio, right? And I think it's going to be the eye test. What does he look like next to the other big boys on the O-line when we see them practice together and we see highlight films of games and preseason games and joint practices? We'll get a true idea of where his true weight is. I feel like he's in the 300 range, maybe. I know 275 and that 270 range is a slimmer, but he is a taller guy. So, that body fat could be, strung out and burned off faster based on his height, which you see a lot with taller guys in that weight class. But long story short, who the hell knows till we see him next to the other big boys on the O-line, right?
Yeah, I don't know how many times I've been around a 345-pound football player, so up close anyway. So I'd be the last person to ask. What do you make of it, Paul? What are you buying it?
345 is a lot. I mean, he's a tall guy. They have him listed at, I think, 6'6". He's a tall guy. I mean, having watched him play last season, I had him. He looks like he's about 320 and change.
Yeah.
As long as he can pass block, man, that's all that matters. I hope he's not 345. That might slow him down. But as long as he protects Stafford's blind side, that's all that matters. We want Optimus 9 throwing dimes.
Yeah.
So, but it just goes in accordance with the whole Blue Thunder mentality. They got Avila listed at 338.
Oh yeah.
I think Jackson is listed at 320. He's the smallest. Then followed by the Havenstein Monster. So
Jonah Jackson, you're talking about, right? Just for clarification.
Yeah.
Jonah.
Yeah. They have him at 320. Then I got 324 for Big Rob. Then Dotson, they have him at 330 and change. Avila 338. I mean, some of these weights can't be accurate, but who knows? But listen, the bottom line is we've been talking about it. We said last time, what does duo stand for? 2 double teams up front. They're going to rip open some gaping holes, and that's the whole idea. Teams will not be able to stack that front anymore because they're going to run right at them. And in the red zone, I think, like I said, I've been saying it since the beginning. This is going to loosen things up. Pound away in the red zone. I think Iron Kyren proved that last year. He found the end zone more than a couple of times.
Yeah.
So
hey, I love it. Bring the thunder, baby.
The next thing I wanted to talk about, I don't like to spend a lot of time on the struggles of our rivals. I like to focus on the Rams, but this Brandon Aiyuk situation, apparently he asked for a trade again. That would be a significant loss for this offense, right? And they drafted Ricky Pearsall, of course. How do you feel about it, Paul? Do you think how much of an impact would that be on this? 49ers have an incredible offense with or without Brandon, but it's got to take a step back, right? Without Brandon, if that's what happens.
Well, Niner Nation should be happy because Slick Rick is the real deal. That was a great draft pick. But
Pearsall is a good player,
yeah, and this is the business end of it. The business end of it really stinks, but it's just a reality. He's asking, for what he deserves to a certain degree, right? Whether how they're going to do it, whether it's going to be a slow trickle until they actually get to the bottom dollar and sign that contract. But listen, this is interesting. I'll tell you why. Look what happened with Tyreek Hill. Right, Kansas City went on to win the Super Bowl, so there might be a lot of teams out there that might want to follow suit with that mindset. Maybe we'll go for quantity over one particular quality player. So it's going to be interesting, however it plays itself out. But the Rams aren't that far off. Think about it. The reality is for King Cup has. If you take a look at what his contract situation is going to be next year. Bless you. It's going to be a monster contract next year, right? For them to pay him, he has to have a year that is just like Triple Crown-esque. So that's another reality too. So I think it's the same way that they're dealing with it on that end for that, but he's a younger player. We're going to be dealing it with King Cup for next year. So it's going to be interesting how that plays out.
Now, as good as Ricky Pearsall could potentially be, I mean, Puka, his rookie year, that's really the exception, right? I still would think that, Pearsall is going to have some growing pains and going
Sure.
to take some time for that offense to get humming if he is, wide receiver too. You agree, Ian?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, look, we like Ricky Pearsall here on this pod. That was somebody I thought would have been worthy of a second round pick on our end, based upon everything Paul just said about the Cooper Kupp scenario and things being a coin flip, right? And Niners got him in the first because they were afraid that they would have no chance to get him in the second. And obviously, the Debo Aiyuk, factor was a part of that too. I always felt that this Niner core, right, with every all-pro and all-Pro Bowl level player you can think of on the 49ers roster, this was their final year altogether where all of them would have a chance to win a championship on this roster. And it feels like, John Lynch, the GM, Shanahan, the coach, they were making a push to be like, yo, Ayuk, just play out that fifth-year option or take this money we want to give it one last push, because no matter what, it felt like Debo was going to be gone or Ayuk was going to be gone after the season if they were to come together and play together one more time. It just felt like it was going to be done just based upon the money that they're spending on that position, based upon the money they pushed down in the future years like we did. You're just going to have to eat that credit card debt or that cap debt that we had to do. And it always felt like the end was near after the season. But unlike Debo's situation last year where he requested trades for multiple times, it wasn't as messy as this is. Let's just be real. The Ayuk stuff is pretty loud. Him talking with Daniels, the rookie quarterback for Washington, because they were teammates way back at Arizona State. Ayuk's been very, very vocal on socials. He's been very, very vocal through family and whatnot. And it seems like he's set in stone on a hard, high payday close to Justin Jefferson, and he ain't going to budge. He wants more than Amon-Ra and others. So, better for us. What does that mean in Rams world? Better for us, because he was their best wide receiver. Clearly, maybe not the best super athlete like Debo is, but no doubt their best pure receiver was Brandon Aiyuk. And if he's gone, that's better for us, better for the regular season, better for the possible playoff matchup. And luckily, our Rams wide receivers don't seem to be in that world of controversy, no matter what happens in the near future. So we shall see what happens. But hey, I'm glad he won't be on the Niners too long, it feels like.
And he plays with an edge too. That's what I liked about him.
Yeah.
It made you dislike those guys when you're going up against them, but you have to respect them.
You got to respect the game. He's a great player. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
right. Yeah. Now, one of you pointed out that the Rams have settled into their joint practice schedule, 4 joint practices. And I was looking at this.
Yeah.
If I understand this correctly, they're going to have joint practices with the Cowboys and the Chargers.
Yes.
Before their preseason game with the Cowboys. And then after the Cowboy game and before the Charger preseason game, they have another joint practice with the Chargers. So 2 of the Chargers. And then they have those joint practices in Houston. That's a, well, we know this about the Rams, how they feel about preseason games. This is when it really counts, right, Ian? This is when the roster battles are going to occur in these joint practices, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I wish these could be televised somehow. I know the Cowboys do a stream, and I think that will be available, just like I think the 2021 or 2022 campaign going into that. We had joint practices with Dallas. Forgive me for not remembering the exact year that was, but they had that filmed live where you can tune into, I think, the Dallas Cowboys website or a sub website that they host where you could watch the joint practices, and they filmed it like NFL Network style. So that'll be an option to watch. Keep an eye out for that, Rams Nation out there, when that happens. But unless, the teams allow fans, and the Rams are notorious for not allowing fans for joint practices, at least on our turf, that's when all the nitty-gritty happens in the preseason, right? Rams do not play starters at all unless you're a rookie potential starter where they just want you to get some game action, right? A la Kobe Turner, a la Avila, a la Byron Young last year, and so forth and so forth. But we ain't going to see them in the preseason, but this is where all the starting caliber player action is going to happen. And no doubt the battles you're going to see. How do you do against their backups? How do you do against their third stringers, and so forth and so forth? So we're going to find out a lot based on all our friends who report on behalf of Rams Nation, the Rodriguez of the world, the Gary Kleins, and so forth and so forth. Their input onto what happens in those joint practices is going to tell a lot. Was it a good day, right? We heard about last year, for example, Hodges Tomlinson having a great day against Devontae Adams in joint practice. Remember that? And everyone's like, oh my God, he was guarding him in man-to-man. He was breaking up passes when he was on the starting unit, and we all were feeling great, and then he didn't get any playing time, right? So we got to take it with a grain of salt, but that's where you're going to say, hey, how good or how not good is a player during this time? No matter if it's a starter, a potential starter, a backup, so forth, so forth, so forth. This is the most important time of the offseason for Rams football. And I can't wait to see 4 joint practices, the most in the NFL, by the way, by any team. So McVay cares about it a lot, and I think that's a great thing that he cares about it.
Yeah, as another football coach, Paul, you just probably love to be a fly on the wall watching these joint practices, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Well, and Ram Nation, remember, players report July 23rd. We're going to be taking a look at some training camp battles at our next roundtable. Mm-hmm. So I think McVay was very, very vocal, very, very specific about why there's 4 joint practices and why the Rams lead the league in joint practices. And there's so many teams that have 3. So I think it's important to watch. McVay said it best. He said, listen, I want to take a look at first-team defense versus first-team offense without that risk of injury. Bingo, there it is. That's been his position all along. I think a lot of coaches feel that way. We talked about it a week or 2 ago. Mm-hmm. That's just the reality of it. I mean, as a fan, I will tell you, every time there is a preseason injury, it just irritates me to no end, and I think it's a reality that the NFL is going to really have to take a closer look at. And I think this is the direction they're going to move forward. And we had talked about it. It's a viable option. McVay loves it. Other teams love it. Just look at the number of teams that have 3 joint practices scheduled. All right. They're not that far off. I just think preseason games, the risk reward scenario, it just doesn't make sense. I don't know how many people out there are really looking forward to preseason games. They're not even scouting out during preseason games. The Rams have been very vocal. They're not going to even play their players during preseason games. So what can you really extract from that?
Yeah, what I like about preseason games, for Rams preseason games, is they're the only games I can just relax and watch.
Right.
They're somewhat stress-free, even though I do remember that game against the Broncos. Was it like 40-something to nothing? That was pretty aggravating, even though I should have known better than to get upset. One thing of the Rams' advantage is, as far as being able to have 4, it's a big advantage having the Chargers cross town, so that facilitates that extra one. And hopefully McVay and Harbaugh get along okay and see eye to eye on how these are going to be conducted, because the Rams have a history of some dust-ups at these joint practices. Mm-hmm. Remember, was it Tremaine Johnson and a Cowboy receiver? Yeah. I forget who it was. It got really nasty. Mm-hmm. Pardon?
Oh, so that was a big brawl. I remember that one.
Right. And then Cincinnati with Aaron Donald.
Yeah, I was at the one where they had the Chargers back in 2018-19, and there was a pretty solid fight that went on during that time when they had it open to the fans. Yeah, Rams are gangster deep down, aren't they? They just like a brawl when another team comes in. Yeah.
And what I'm wondering, 2 questions. One, and you may not have the answer, either of you, but how much of the new kickoff rule will be part of these joint practices?
A lot, probably.
Yeah. Experimentation, perhaps, without letting anything out of the bag, maybe. It'd be interesting to see how they approach that.
I think,
and also to see how the other team reacts. That's the thing. You were asking about that, and Ian, let me know your thoughts. From an X and O's perspective, the joint practices, I think, have a lot of utility. Think about it. You're talking about formations. You're talking about how a team react to formations, shifts, etc. Getting guys on the same page from your own offensive, if you want, playbook. Same thing with the defense, how they're going to react to shifts, how they're going to react to changes on the other side of the ball. So I love the idea of the joint practices. I think NFLPA really has to take a close look at this. For the wave of the future, how to organize this. If 18-week schedule is really coming down the road, which it is, everybody's talking about it. We were talking about on that interview, right? The first thing they threw out was they said, how many weeks, right? The interviewer said 18 weeks, right? So if it's really coming down the road, that this is something they really need to take a look at and embrace, because I think if done right, and Ian brought up a really good point, start televising them. You think about when the combine is around, we tune in for those position specific combine drills. Think about that same type of mindset, right? So I definitely think there's some utility there.
Yeah. And for the kickoff rule, Mark and Paul here, I mean, guys, that's where all the work's going to get done, is these joint practices. And it's even better for the Rams because we do not play the Chargers this year. So you can let loose a little bit more, both on offense, defense, and the special team session where no one knows how it's going to go. Same thing with the Houston Texans. We do not play them this season. You can let loose. And
until the Super Bowl, though.
With do we play the Cowboys? I'm blanking on that for whatever reason right now. I'm going to say
we play the Eagles.
Yes.
So yeah.
I don't know why, but I should know the schedule back of my hand by now. And the same thing, we can let loose. So because of all that, the joint practice will be more game-oriented play calling, both offense, defense, and this unknown special teams. So we're going to find out a lot. We're going to hear from our inside reporters of like, hey, the Rams special teams unit was great today against the Houston Texans in joint practices. Or it was terrible against the LA Chargers in practice, right? We're going to hear those things because those things will come out, and the reporters will do a good job about relaying how those sessions are going. So in terms of the work put in, it's going to be a lot because it's so brand new and fresh. And of course, you want to see how your guys react to an opposing scheme and how do you adjust after maybe the third rep, right? Or the third play doing it against that team. It's like, oh, we can make this adjustment. Or maybe we slide block this way on the return. Or maybe we pull it like a run play to this side. I mean, it's going to get crazy in a fun way. And I can't wait to see it and hear about it in these joint practices and preseason games, especially too.
Yeah, and if they want to salvage the special teams aspect of it, I know everybody's talking about they went to this rule to try to salvage. The only way teams are going to invest personnel and actually have them actively engage from the special teams end is if there's the potential to score points. That's the bottom line. I mean, nobody is going to take that risk unless it has the potential to score points. Otherwise, we're going to be right back at square one again.
Sure.
The last thing on that preseason schedule and the joint practices, August in Houston, that can't be too exciting for some of these players. That's going to be so hot.
Yes.
It'll be hot, but I mean, better that way than freezing cold because the Rams can't play good in freezing cold other than Matthew Stafford, so it's just, that's all right. That's all right.
And you said the Rams,
Jared Goff. Excuse me, Jared Goff.
Rams Texans do indeed not play each other. However, that's my Super Bowl pick. Don't forget that. Rams Texans. I'm not going chalk. Everybody's 49ers Chiefs. Come on, let's give me something juicy.
Stroud loves Stafford, man. He looks up to Stafford.
Right.
He loves to watch him play. It would be awesome. Nice chess game there.
Yeah. The next thing we're going to talk about is this video that is kind of going viral, I guess.
So crazy. Oh, my goodness.
This is Brandon Fisk doing his Aaron Donald imitation.
Yes, and to everybody tuning in on wherever you get your podcast, thank you very much. But if you got any time at all, check out our YouTube page, Rams Up. And please look at this clip here if you haven't seen it. Watch it with us. It's Brandon Fisk going through field drills, cone drills, ladder drills, and his feet are very Donald-esque in terms of quickness, speed, power, kind of all combined together. And well, that was the justification we heard many a times for the Rams taking Brandon Fisk. It was just a freak of nature, super athlete at D tackle. And we've seen many a moons of Donald's workout videos and his field work, stuff like that. And golly, I'm not trying to compare him to the great one in my background here, but that footwork for a big human being, for a D tackle especially, that gives me some positive vibes, if you know what I mean, about his future as a Ram. How do you guys feel? Shoot.
Yeah, it was awesome when he said he wanted to work out with Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald was like, come on down. And you can already see the benefit of that. And, one thing I will say, if you take a look at this front, right, with the conductor, right, with I Can't Drive 55, and then you got if Bobby Brown can hold it together in the middle, right, and play well with the shade, you got a front that can just go for it and just just play penetration football, man.
Yes.
Right. Reestablish that LOS, man. And from a Shula perspective, he could really cut these guys loose, because if you look at, that footwork and that explosiveness off the line and that hand usage that we saw in the film from draft day, come on. He and the conductor can do damage. And Bobby Brown and our boy Davis from Clemson in the middle. They can also get after it. So listen, Bobby Brown is a massive, massive player, right? He's a massive player. People sometimes overlook that. So this is a line with, you got Action Jackson, you got Monster Zero, you got Bars. They can really get at this. Defense is not going to be one of those read-react defenses. I have a feeling Shula's going to pick his spots, but he's going to cut it loose.
I hope so. I don't remember the last time I felt this good about the Rams' top 2 picks. I just feel like, I hate to say like they're a surefire, future all-pro players, but man, I got to feel good about them.
I do.
Let's see. So we talked a little bit about Aaron Donald there, and Aaron Donald was also in the news. Was that you? Did you listen to this podcast, Ian? Was it you? Go ahead.
Yes, correct. Yes, I did listen, and it came out earlier today. It was on the Pivot podcast. Ryan Clark, Channing Crowder, Fred Taylor, the great Jaguar, who I grew up watching. Man, what a great running back he was.
He was awesome.
He was on there today, and he was asked the question about like, what? Look at you, man! You're a monster still. Why aren't you still playing? And long story short, Aaron Donald says, I cannot disrespect the football gods by being half in, half out. He's like, I don't have the passion to play a 17-game schedule. I don't have the passion to put in the work and keep up what is necessary to be great, to be a respectable NFL player. And look, until we get to the tournament, everyone seems like they're going to hold out some hope that he will return for that eventual, playoff run.
Guilty.
Right?
Guilty.
I will raise my hand with you. I'm one of those people. But with these comments, unfortunately, my percentage of belief has dropped down. I always thought it would be fantastic for this to see that, right, as a fan, as a Rams fan. But he seems pretty set in stone on him being done with the game. And he was getting a little teary-eyed, and he spoke clear, but it just seems like he just keeps reading, hey, guys, like, I really am done. I'm not going to pull some nonsense and not be all in, on the journey, what it takes to be on the NFL team and be a part of it and be a good player, great player. So not to be a Debbie Downer, shout out to the great one in my background here, Aaron Donald, number 1 for sure. But, if it happens, great. But I'm not betting any money on it. How about that, to sum it up?
Yeah, and he's got his health, and that's really important. You retire, he's a wealthy man, he's healthy, and he'll have a Hall of Fame ceremony in a few years, and we'll celebrate that, and we just got to accept that, I think.
Yeah.
Kind of a bummer, but hey, greatest player in the history of the NFL as far as I'm concerned.
Ooh. I mean, guys, his PF. So look, I know PFF. There's a lot of give and take, and a lot of like, okay, take it with a grain of salt with stuff. But his career grade, 1 through 100, is a 97. It should probably be higher. Let's just be honest. It feels like it should be 99, just based off his play every snap of his career. But it just shows you the greatness. I mean, he's just filthy in the most positive football way possible. And we'll miss you, Donald. I'll hold up a little bit of hope. Maybe you come back in January. That'd be fun.
Hey, next thing I wanted to...
Aaron wore his Madden rating on his jersey. We all know that. Yeah. If he's a 97, that's a 97 through double teams and triple teams. And one thing that stood out for me was, and I'll keep saying it, because I agree with him. He said all the positive things he said. He said, I was disappointed. I knew it was going to be my last year. And he was like, man, they ain't brought in no veteran help. I knew I was going to get triple teamed. And he played out the season, right? He said all positive things, but, he said it loud and clear. The way they handled last year, that was a mistake, and they've grown from that. They've learned from that. It is what it is. Your best player wanted to make another run. Stafford wanted to make another run, and for whatever reason, we'll never know. It just was handled in a way. I mean, listen, they didn't even have a kicker. So the frustration that he must have felt, it keeps coming out, even though he's saying it in a nice way. But, we'll see what happens when the playoffs roll around. That temptation is always there, even if it's only for a couple of days. But, Ram Nation, I think for everybody out there, I mean, listen, this is, and, Mark, Ian, and myself, and I think all the entire Rams Up family, there's no way to summarize what AD means to this franchise or to the NFL in terms of just the consistency of play, the level of play, and just modeling how you work. We see that now with our rookies. Yeah. But, the way, and I think if there's anything just to take away from the interview apart from football, is the way the value he placed on his family. Not just the family he grew up with, but his wife, his children, his current family members, right? His extended family. And I think, whether you're Ram Nation or any nation, there's a lot there that we can take a walk away with. And what really stood out for me was not just the football end of it, right? Two things was, number one, the way he spoke about his wife, right? The respect and the admiration that he has for his partner. I think a lot of people could, benefit from that. That's the way it's done. That's the way it should be handled when it comes to relationships like that. And you see the value, because he said loud and clear, he was like, my wife was the one that got me through a lot. She was the one that kept encouraging me. She was the glue that held everything together. And the second thing was, I didn't even know about that. He didn't go into too many details, but he spoke about that, some of the stressors that he had experienced had to do with his personal life, had to do with his children, right? His older kids, right? And that goes back to our conversation that we have had over the last 3 roundtables. And, we even had it last week with rest in peace, Alaric Jackson situation, is that there are, we forget they're human beings. There are things that come up in their life that are, outside of football. And he said, listen, I picked up the phone a couple of times and I called Coach McVay and said, listen, I need to go home and take care of business. Right. And, shout out to Coach McVay and the Rams organization. They were like, yeah, family comes first. And that's what he said. He quoted him. He said, they told me that's how they handle it. Family comes first. So shout out to the Rams organization for having that mindset. Shout out to AD for the respect that he has for his inner circle. And we see it play out on the field and in his career.
We should probably start maybe guessing who's going to present at the Hall of Fame for him. My guess is it Coach Henderson?
Oh,
Hendo?
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be my guess. Who knows, though? Maybe it'd be his wife after hearing what Paul had to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't it still sting that Hendo's not here? I just cannot. Two things, Ram Nation, that stings, man. Thomas Brown is not here, and Hendo is not here. I think this would have been a great season if they were with us. Man.
Well, USC gave him that nice pay raise to come over there. Yeah. So, hey, dude, I get it. I
know they're.
Kroenke got money. Though. He could keep up with USC.
Oh, I know. But hey, man, when you get an opportunity to change a culture of terrible defense, right, with your winning ways that has been proven to work in the highest level of football, it's hard not to say no, right? To take the opportunity to make USC a great powerhouse again. Can't blame him. Can't blame him. It's all right, Henny. We got a ring. It's all good.
So can we acknowledge before we go on to our next segment, because I wanted to acknowledge, shout out to Pitt and for absolute beast. Before the podcast, we were talking about a Ram Nation, the absolute monsters they have thrown in the NFL. The list, is just way too long to go over in this particular segment. Maybe we'll revisit this, but we got AD, Marino, Dorsett, Fitzgerald, Revis Island, Hugh Green, Curtis Martin, Mike Ditka, Jimbo Covert, Russ Grimm. I mean, it just goes on. Stepnowski, Chris Dolman, Le'Veon Bell, Shady McCoy. I mean, Ironhead Hayward, Antonio Bryant. I mean, shout out to Pitt Panthers, man. They are getting it done.
Yeah, that was an item you sent, and I forgot to include. I'm sorry, I apologize for that, Paul. And
No,
Larry Fitzgerald, man, you got. How can you not like Larry Fitzgerald?
You gotta love, man. You gotta love Fitzgerald.
Yeah, I just remember him against the Rams. He just seemed like, you talk about class, right? I'd probably put him on that list of professional athletes, along with I've always said Isaac Bruce and Stevie Eiserman. If you know Stevie Eiserman, my two favorite athletes as far as you want your kid to emulate a professional athlete. I'd have to throw Larry Fitzgerald into that mix too.
Absolutely. What a class act. Shouting out Stevie Eiserman, Red Wings. Look at that.
Yeah. The captain. My son started playing roller hockey right when the Russian Five took the NHL by storm. Sergei Fedorov, Brendan Shanahan, Stevie Y, and those are good times.
Sick.
Okay, so the next thing I don't know how we got. Sorry, that was an odd tangent. So
that's okay. Hey, listen, any type of Stevie Y reference. I mean, you want to throw out Pavel Bure too as well.
We'll talk about the Red Wings and the Pistons, but no Lions.
Oh, okay, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next up we're going to talk about, McVay and Stafford. These are two different polls, I think, that came out. I think they're independent of each other. McVay as the number 2 coach in the NFL. I don't know what the qualifier was, and Stafford the 5th best quarterback, which makes both of them make perfect sense to me. Now, I get the coach thing. To me, it depends on what you want. You want a coach to coach your franchise for the next 10 years. It's got to be someone like McVay. You want to win a Super Bowl this year with any random roster, still might be McVay. He's got to be up there too.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this poll? I mean, who was ahead of McVay? Pardon?
I think it was Andy Reid, right?
It was Andy Reid.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. He's coaching a dynasty, so it's like we're not going to choose the dynasty coach.
You got to give Reid credit.
Yeah. So go ahead, Paul.
I mean, I'm sure Ian's going to feel the same way. Listen, look, worst to first, straight from Jump Street. So, I mean, regardless of the ranking, you got to give McVay credit. That part of it, roster management, culture building, X's and O's, getting it done. If there's one element to his game that I think probably is, the big game management. If there is a question mark, he's had a couple of questionable big games, Super Bowls, championship games, etc. That, maybe he needs to sort of take a look at how he approaches that. Andy Reid, remember, went through that same scenario before he was winning all these Super Bowls. Remember that. Andy Reid went through that same scenario. So, so if there is an area of his sort of trajectory that still needs to be, I think, honed, I would say that would be it. But other than that, he checks all the boxes. He's very player-centered. He interacts well with the media. He interacts well with the community. The persona is positive. He's willing to take feedback, everything that you would want from a coach. But apart from that big game management, I can understand why he's ranked number 2.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's hard to not choose the dynastic coach as number 1, right? Right. But the next best thing is Coach McVay, who has a championship of himself. Culture, like Andy Reid, great culture. Great schematics, just like Andy Reid, Sean McVay. Great player relatability. I mean, obviously Andy Reid's a grown man to the fullest extent. McVay is still young in terms of the game of life and in terms of NFL coaching and player-esque, but very relatable, family first, right? Like we had talked about not too long ago in this show. And if you want to win a championship over the long haul, how do you not choose Sean McVay, right? We don't know how many years Andy Reid has left. And I feel like these polls are more about the now, right? Not over who you want the next 10 years. But I think if you want somebody in the next 5 plus 10 years, it would probably be Coach McVay. And I don't think too many executives or owners would argue that. So,
Yeah,
hey,
the only two that I might throw out there, and I'd still take McVay over both of them, is Shanahan and LaFleur. Those
yeah,
would be the only two younger coaches that have a good future in front of them for sure. But
yeah,
and Stafford coming in at 5, finally getting some respect. That's
yes.
about right, I think. It could be higher, but we're Ram fans. We're going to have our Stafford bias.
And to this gentleman, this poll is from ESPN, where they talk to executives, GMs, and others. So this is definitely more credible as a quarterback ranking list than maybe us talking about it, other podcasts you may listen to, other analysis people, quarterback people, whoever you listen to. This list is an accumulation of a lot of people in the NFL universe ranking the quarterbacks. So Stafford's at number 5, and he is the number 1 NFC quarterback. So everyone else ahead of him is all AFC guys. Mahomes, Allen, you can guess who else, and you can check it out yourself. But finally, it takes a player to get out of a whack situation like Detroit to finally get, recognized as a mega star. He is. Maybe he's a little more quiet and maybe not as outspoken as his wife and all that stuff. But Matthew Stafford's fantastic. One more Super Bowl. He's a bona fide Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. It's on the teeter-totter as it is right now. And thank God people are getting their heads out of their behinds and realizing what a fantastic quarterback and player he is.
Hey, didn't we talk about a poll recently, or someone ranked the quarterbacks and they had him at like 15th or something?
Yeah.
And
Clutch. They had him. It was the ranking of clutch quarterbacks, and how he's not in the top 5 is bananas. But
what is he ranked, number 6 right now, or number 7th, or tied for 7th? Going to go into 6 soon. Like, people don't watch film and watch games. It's just ridiculous.
Optimus 9 is straight money.
Yeah.
The bigger the game, the better he plays. And listen, from an X and O's perspective, for the Rams, make no mistake about it, they can draw whatever they want on the chalkboard. Bottom line is, get healthy, get into the playoffs, and let Optimus 9 do his thing. He will light it up like a pinball machine. There's no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's got to be the focal point for this year and for next year. The Rams have a legitimate shot to go, get a ring or maybe 2 within the next 2 years, because if you think about it, man, this Optimus 9, man, it's like the dude looks like he's still ready to go. He's still, the way he just energizes the team. And this is the key for a quarterback. If you look in the huddle, right, every player in that huddle believes it's going to get done.
Yeah.
They're like, in their mind, they're trying to figure out how they lost, right? Because in their mind, they're like, listen, with Optimus 9, it's a wrap, right? Yeah. So I think, I don't think he's ever going to get the credit he truly deserves. He's not ashamed, like Ian said. He doesn't believe in that shameless self-promotion. He spent a large part of his career, unfortunately not in the playoffs. But now that he's got the limelight, he's in a huge media market. And you still see that he's quiet, does his job, team-centered, no chest thumping until he needs to. And listen, go back to that Super Bowl when that cheap shot on Kupp, who was the first one down there in the end zone. Optimus 9 ran down there, right? So that just goes to show you the kind of player we're talking about. And there's no list for that.
And real quick, gentlemen, I don't mean to cut you off, Mark. I'm just thinking about it. Not only do the Rams and we have the number 1 most talented quarterback in the conference, we have the most cerebral, the most smart quarterback in the conference, I feel, and the most clutch. So why can't we be in an NFC Championship game, or why can't we be in a Super Bowl based off those things? Hey, I hope it gets done. That's all I got to say.
That's been Kansas City's strategy every year, right? All you got to do is get to the playoffs and let Mahomes do his thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I look at this offense, and I don't know how teams are going to stop it. I really don't. And it could lead to a really good year for our defense statistically when, we start putting points up on the board, and other offenses start taking risks against our defense, and turnover city, put more points on the board. Man, it could be a fun year.
Mm-hmm. Run the ball, control that clock.
Yep, keep them healthy. Run that damn ball with Blake and Kyron. That's a part of the mold. So we'll see. But at again, thank you GMs, thank you NFL Universe, thank you executives for finally realizing that Matthew Stafford is that dude. Thank you.
So the last thing I wanted to talk about with Stetson Bennett sharing a lot more details about what he went through last year. You have the scoop on that, Ian, probably better than either.
Yeah, so we've talked about it a ton about what the hell happened with Stetson and what was going on with that, and we had our guesses. There were some things that have came out that we have talked about, but from his own words, he was on a podcast recently, and he had talked about how just the world, long story short, to paraphrase in the best possible, is everything was just caving in on him. The pressure of being an NFL quarterback is, he had, some serious passing in his friend group that wore on him. And there was other things. You can listen and find those quotes. And we don't think about it. And we talk about Aaron Donald and the pressure and the grind it takes to be good and great. For a player that's on the bubble, where he talks about, man, it's not like college where, things don't work out and no one will know about it. The limelight is on you in the NFL. There are many people watching you, and especially with his position that he had talked about. And he was like, that pressure to do well and to perform well, practice day in, day out, coupled with all the other off the field things that was going on with them. It just was mounting and mounting, and that mental grind that you need. It's tough, man. It's tough. I feel for professional athletes, anybody in any high pressure job or situation that you're in. It can wear you down, and good for Stetson for not caving in and completely melting, right? He took the time away to regroup the mind, the body, and everything. And, I'm sure there'll be more stuff that comes out, but he's slowly starting to share all the details that led to his departure last season. And for anyone that was like, who gives a damn, you're making a ton of money. If you've been there, somebody who's been in these high pressure situations, whether it be anything, and you can see and notice that it is wearing on them in a negative light, got to give the guy some slack. Give your friend some slack. Give Stetson Bennett some slack here, because it ain't easy. It ain't easy, man.
And he's a kid, he's a young man.
And think about it, to put into perspective, Rand Nation, can you imagine winning 2 national championships and then having to step it up in terms of scrutiny? Yeah. The realization that, oh, holy cow, I just won 2 national championships, and now going to the NFL, it's literally like, I'm in the fishbowl. I thought it was in the fishbowl down here. Holy cow, it's really the microscope is on me. So I think, just to go back to what Ian was saying, is that, look, so many things happened. And it's like like Stetson Bennett said in the interview, and he really handled himself well. Mm-hmm. He really did. And he said everything, the timing of everything. Yeah. But once again, being able, the organization saying, you have our blessing, take a step away, step back, clear your mind, get yourself right, and come back. And, just go back a couple of roundtables when we were talking about the mental health aspect of it, the Rams including certain components of that as part of their team culture, and having actual resources on the premises at all times. I think this just goes back to it. AD, listen, look, 99 Problems talked about it. It wasn't just Stetson Bennett talking about it, right? Yeah. We've had other players. Everybody's been talking. Blake the Great, in his segment, he talked about it. He said how much he looked forward to the yoga sessions that they were having, the Rams were having, because it gave him a time to sort of relax and unwind. And this is exactly what we are talking about. The grind is much more than physical. It's also mental. And, if there's anything that the media needs to understand, is like, listen, lay off this kid. He's already told you something. What he has revealed is enough. Let's move forward.
And let's start pulling for him, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Let's talk about Stetson Bennett. The kid has proven that he can win at the collegiate level. If there's anything he needs to work on, it's probably arm strength. That's the big thing we know a lot of collegiate players that have won Heisman's, won national championships. They come to the NFL. You got to be able to make those intermediate throws. You got to be able to get into those throw the ball into those tight windows. You have to be able to throw with touch. So that's something he's going to work on, work on the mechanics, work on the footwork. We know mentally upstairs, the kid understands football. He's going to absorb the playbook. And listen, anything that Matthew Stafford says, just take it as this is the way it should be done. You can't have a better role model than Optimus 9. So, hopefully, this is our quarterback of the future. One thing I will say, definitely has to work on the arm strength. But, listen, look, the past is the past. He's in a great situation. You can't ask to be in a better situation. Great role model, great coach, great team culture. And, let's hope he puts it together.
Yeah. And he's got some mobility too, which is nice especially for a backup.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was a good discussion, guys. And we talked about before we started this, we're going to get into our roster battles and talking a lot more about that in the coming weeks as we get closer to that opening preseason game. Man, we're going to have a lot to talk about. There's some, we didn't want to get into it tonight because we'd probably be on here for 2 hours. And we can break it up into 2 or 3 additional roundtables talking about this roster and how it's going to shape up. Any final thoughts, Ian?
Yeah, gosh, it's just, I love football. The off season is grueling at times, but it's always a great time coming on and talking to you guys and sharing our thoughts to everybody who wants to tune in and listen. And golly, I can't wait for games to start happening. Even as preseason, we'll tune it in, we'll turn it on. And we'll be like, this product kind of sucks. But the excitement, the buildup before you get to that realization is a great feeling. That you're like, yes, there are Rams games happening live and on TV and at SoFi, right? And
Rams Cowboys at SoFi, even if it's preseason, that's kind of special.
It's an exciting feeling again. And when you start watching the quality of play, you're like, okay, I can't wait till September, right? And you start hitting the higher ceilings of your expectations, but I do want to feel that feeling again soon, and I know we will, and I'm just excited, man. Real excited.
Hey, Paul, we'll get back to your list of Pittsburgh, University of Pittsburgh, great players, another episode, and maybe Ian and I will share a university that we want to call out for having great NFL success.
Oh, here we go. But to the worldwide Ramley, thank you. Continue to subscribe. We do have we love your comments. We have a couple of new members to the Ramley. We saw that. Welcome. But keep sending us those comments, keep sending us those feedback, the new segments that you want to see. Ian and I are going to put together a really nice segment on defense. Some just to clarify some nomenclature. I know a lot of people have asked about something that if we could do that, we're definitely going to do that in the near future. The training camp battles roundtable coming up next week, I think is going to be fantastic. So on, from the entire Rams Up family, continue to tune in and, Ramley forever.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot. It was fun, and see you next time.
Peace.
That's going to do it for this episode. Remember, you can reach us at ramsuppodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget about our YouTube channel. Our handle is at laramsup.com. Till next time, keep the horns up, stay safe, and have fun out there.